Hi, my name is Tyler Dorsey. I recently got to sit down with White County High School Assistant Principal Dr. Octavius Mulligan to talk to him about his life growing up in New York. This is the story of how his life was drastically changed. You told me yesterday when we talked that your grandmother pulled you out of school when you were in the 9th grade. How does that make you feel?
When my grandmother told me we were moving to Georgia from New York, it was twofold. I was kind of happy about it, but then again I was sad because I was leaving behind some things that I really enjoyed doing, and then I was afraid of the unknown. What am I going to do when I move to Georgia? I don't know anybody. They don't do the same things. It's country. I'm used to the city life. I'm not going to make it. So it was a decision that kind of puzzled me for a while.
From your childhood, what kind of friends did you have? The good kids or the bad kids?
Well, I'll say this. They were good guys, but they were just like me. They had some things. We did some things that we probably shouldn't have done. Scratch that, not probably. We did some things that we shouldn't have done. All children are good. It's just the decisions you make define who you are, and we made some bad decisions growing up as kids. I even have some friends now that are no longer with us. I have friends that are in the penal system and have been there for 20 plus years, and I have some friends that are doing okay. So they're good people, good-hearted people in the first place, but in the end, your decisions define who you are.
In the letter that you gave me from one of your friends, Jamal, he sent that from you in prison. Who is Jamal?
Jamal was just a good friend of mine, and believe it or not, Jamal wasn't as bad as we were. Jamal didn't participate in the things that we participated in. He didn't do some of he didn't make some of the bad choices we made. He made one choice, one bad decision in his life, and it cost him 20 plus years of his life because he was locked up for 21, 22 years. He's been locked up since '93. He just was able to get parole this past May.
Huh. Within the letter, he mentioned a story about you going to White Castle in the Bronx. Can you tell me more about that story?
The story about going to White Castle in the Bronx. White Castle's was probably, we lived in Yonkers, so Yonkers and the Bronx bordered each other, but White Castle's was near Yankee Stadium, about 15 minutes away. Another friend of ours named Larry Gill somehow we got a hold of a vehicle that didn't belong to either one of us. Larry, who is my age, Jamal is older than I am. Jamal may be 46 or 47 right now. But he was older, and Larry had the car, so Larry decided to drive to White Castle's, and I decided to tag along, and Jamal decided to tag along. And the thing about White Castle's is just like Crystal's, but only at that time the hamburgers were 25 cents, cheeseburgers were 35 cents. So as young 12, 13-year-old kids, you get 50 cents and you pretty much got a meal. So we took this car down to White Castle's, and Jamal said, go down the interstate, don't go the back way because we'll get in trouble. Well, sure enough, we get down there and we got caught. I guess we looked suspicious or whatever, and we got caught, and I was terrified because I hadn't been caught by the police before. And so when we were in the booking station, these guys asked me for my name, and I just gave them my full name. And I really never use my middle name, and so Jamal gives me a hard time about, when those cops stopped us, you spilled the beans, you told them everything. So, I pretty much learned my lesson, at least I thought. I learned my lesson not to ride in a stolen car, but we still did it anyway, so.
In the letter, he mentioned you were part of the Suicide Squad. Can you tell me how that came about and what that means?
Well, mentioning the Suicide Squad, I didn't realize what the title meant until I got older. Suicide means taking one's life. And so we thought we were cool. We had it was about 25 of us, and we called ourselves the Suicide Squad. And we lived in one apartment complex, and there were kids that lived in other apartment complexes, and everybody had their own quote-unquote gang, but we called it a squad. And we used to do things to initiate people in, like, you know, you had to jump over the balcony and down into the parking area, and we would do things like that. And then we would go to other housing projects, start trouble, or spray paint on their walls, or just do things like that. And after he and I had a long talk, we realized that there are not many of them still alive, or at least out of jail. You know, he and I were the two that we could put our fingers on, that we knew where they were. So that's what that was all about. And I still keep looking to see if some of them are still alive, but I know he is, and he's still there. So he would have a better opportunity to find those guys than I would.
You mentioned spray painting houses, and you said you were big into graffiti. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, when I was at the young age of, you know, I left New York when I was 15. So, you know, I started my mischievousness I'll be honest, when I left Catholic school, I used to go to Catholic school. We had to wear uniforms every day. When I left Catholic school and went to the public school, it seems like I just went nuts. And what we would do is we would steal spray paint from paint store, any one of the stores that sold paint. And we had these books, and I don't have a copy of it, I meant to bring it, but we had these books that we would plan out what we were going to do. We'd find a place to put the thing on the wall, and I'd sneak out of my house at about 2 in the morning, 2 or 3 in the morning, and then if my grandmother realized I was gone, I could say I was in the building. The apartment building we lived in had 345 apartments. So all I had to do, and my mom lived in that same building, I had cousins lived in the building, so I could say I was at one of their houses until the trail just got too long and she would quit worrying about it. But we would sneak out and spray paint on buildings, on trains, anywhere we could get your name up. It was kind of like a popularity thing. It's like social media. Actually, what we did, we called it tagging. It was like the prehistoric social media. We would try to get our names up as much as possible in the whole city. I used to carry around "Hello, my name is" stickers, and I would pre-write my name on them and stick them on the bus. Wherever we would go, you could see somebody's name.
What is one of your most memorable moments as a kid?
All right, well, there are a lot, but this one was fun. I still talk about this today. The apartment building I lived in was 12 stories. So we had 2 elevators on this side, and then on the other side we had 2 elevators. And we all would get on top of the elevator, go through the top, and get on top and ride on top of the elevator. And when people would get in, we would jerk it or stop it and make it get stuck between floors and open the door. And people would freak out. I mean, it was bad. I'm thinking now, oh my God, all this stuff I did. But it was fun. And we still, Jamal and I talk about that to this day. Riding on top of the elevator, getting other kids stuck in there and them not knowing we were up there because there were controls on the top. And the controls on the top were for maintenance men to get up there, and if there was an issue, you could correct it. And we found out that was there, and we used to go up there and get on top and make people's day miserable.
In the letter, he also mentioned Norris, Skibo, and Big Tone. Who are those people?
Norris, Jamal, in the letter, he discusses a few of our friends, Big Tone, Skibo, and Norris. Actually, they're friends. They were part of the suicide group, so those guys, and I don't know if they're still alive or not. I don't even know if they're in jail. I haven't heard from them, but I do know Norris is still alive because his brother's name is Festus, and those guys are actually, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a rap group called The Lox, Jadakiss, those guys, they are pretty popular. He manages that group, and they have a juice bar, so he's doing pretty good along with his brother. But Skibo and Big Tone, I have no idea what those guys are doing at this time.
Were there any near-death experiences?
I'll just say this, I had several experiences where I thought, you know, this is it. And it basically is every day that we get up. My last year in New York was, I was a 9th grader, and I went to a school called Roosevelt High School. And I used to take the public bus because taking the yellow bus up there was a no-no. If you did, you'd get ridiculed the rest of your life. So I took it was about 20 miles from my house where I went to high school, and we actually had to carry weapons to keep from, you know, because people, you know, if we've roughed up a guy from another neighborhood, it's a chance that they would go to the same high school that you went to. So I'll just say this, there's not one specific time I remember, but I will say this, every single day, I never knew. I never knew what was going to happen because every single day was pretty dangerous, just the way we lived. We just lived on the edge. I mean, way on the edge. Sometimes we were like tilting. That's how you know, crazy things were for us up there.
And how is living in Georgia different than living in New York?
Moving down to Georgia is different for the simple fact it's much slower. And what I mean slower is you know, in New York, everything was hands-on and immediately. If I needed to get to an area, I can jump on the bus and go right away, or hop on a train and go right away. Well, when I moved to Thompson's a small rural town in middle Georgia, close to Augusta, and when we got there, it's like dirt roads, houses on cinder blocks, you could look clean under them. And it was what I felt like it was for me was a second chance to do the right thing. And I made the best of that because you know, I started playing sports again. I was able to earn a scholarship to go to college, which leads me to this point today. Without that move from New York, I don't think, you know, I could be writing somebody letters, or somebody could be sitting in this spot saying, yeah, I remember Octavius from New York. He did this, and you know, he got killed, or this happened, or he OD'd, or that. So there's a huge difference. And I'll tell you one other thing I did is my mom got into some trouble, and I'll tell you, my mom's 15 years older than I was. She had me when she was 15. So she got into some trouble as an adult, and she was incarcerated. And my sister, I have 2 sisters. My youngest sister, Rosa, who was still in New York, and my first year of college during spring break, me and a couple of friends rode up there, and I told the lady that she was staying with. I said, you know, I've been gone a while. I'm coming to visit my sister and see how she's doing and take her out to eat. And that lady said, okay. And she never came back. I moved her down here. So basically I kidnapped my sister, but she wasn't living with her mom. So I brought her to Georgia as well, and she ended up doing well too. So
His story is one that shows no matter how dark one's past is, the future can always be bright. I'm Tyler Dorsey reporting for WTVN.